town hall for the 2021 budget. I am board director Joshua Bowens, and with me here are, let's see, who do we have here? We have our general manager, Joe Akla, John, our IT specialist, who will be handling this meeting, our security manager, Norm. 2021 budget. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm hearing like a bunch of echo. All right, sorry about that. We have my main man, Bruce Bishop, our maintenance manager. Looks like Andrea Herrick just joined us, marina manager. Maddie Otley, our rec manager. And Brian Krulak, what is your title, Brian? Director of golf?
You nailed it.
Go. Joe Heverling, our accountant manager. Hi, Joel, how are you?
Pretty good. How are you?
Good, thanks. Looks like Lisa Armstrong just joined us. She is
I'm
our
here.
admin manager, but she has like a million titles, I think. And who am I missing? We have board director Karen Borchert and NNE Linda Bradley. And so far we have 14 attendees in the audience. Thanks everyone for showing up for this and participating. For those who are not here that are watching this later on in the recording, if you have questions about the budget or comments or any suggestions, please email them into communications@suddenvalley.com. And then we could forward those on to the board or finance committee or whoever needs to take a look at those. Last year, the town halls had presentations by each department on the walls. This year, since we're doing this via Zoom, it's a little hard to, cast all those presentations on the screen. So if you want to check those out, they were sent out in an email yesterday. They'll go out again next week, and they will also be on the website under the dues facts. For the budget, budget proposal sheet and all the supporting documents, you can find those on the left tab of the website under AGM. There's PDFs there that you can take a look at. And what else do we have here? I think that's about it. So what we're going to do is we are going to have Joel go through just a brief overview of what's changing on the budget, what isn't changing, just a brief synopsis of that. And then we're going to open the floor to community questions. You can leave a question in the chat box, or you can participate, and John will bring you over to our side so you can make your comment or suggestions or questions. If you want to take it from here, Joel, that would be amazing.
Sure, yeah. And I think what I'll just do is I'm going to share the screen, and what I'm going to be looking at is the link that's on the Sudden Valley website, on the AGM link where you see the budget packet. As soon as I figure out how to do this. Hey, John. How do I share the screen again on the? Oh, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Down on the bottom, you should see a green share screen.
Oh, okay, yeah.
There you go.
Okay. Can everyone see the Sudden Valley memo here?
I believe it's.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's not currently sharing. There you go.
How about now? So you see like a Sudden Valley cover letter memo?
It's
Yes.
up now.
Okay, good. All right. So I'm just going to, I'll start at the top, and I'll just give a quick overview of the budget here. The memo starts out with, talks about the 2020 budget parameters. The main budget parameters for 2021 will be the collection rate in 2020 was 92%. Collection rate for 2021 has been increased to 95% collection rate. There's a 3% increase in salaries and wages for possible merit increases or mandatory cost of living increases, which of course those have been discussed in the past board meetings. 15% increase to insurance costs, 15% increase to health insurance, health benefits costs for payroll. That doesn't mean we'll necessarily get a 15% increase, but this is just, these are numbers that the brokers have told us to kind of safely count on. Now there's the mandatory 3% recreation special assessment increase, according to the SGM in 2018 when you guys, or when you guys passed that. So what that does is, since the rec special assessment is going up, then the operation dues have been decreased to offset that increase of the special assessment, which, so the bottom line is no dues increase projected for 2021. And that's, matter of fact, I'll just scroll right to this page right here where it's comparing 2020 dues to 2021 dues. And you'll see right here, the special assessment goes from 1111 per month to 1144, which is a 33 cent increase. But then ops dues have been decreased by 33 cents to make up for that, to keep the dues flat for 2021. So whether it's developed lots or undeveloped lots, there's no increase to the dues. This is made at the time when I put these budget materials together, we had technically 3,138 lots, 2,668 developed lots, and 470 vacant lots. So this scenario is built off of a 95% collection based off of these lot numbers right here. Now with this page, what this page is showing you is you got a page like this similar to last year, and this is showing you the dues breakdown, like essentially a projection year by year, 2021 through, or 2020 through 2029. Last year is 2019 through 2028. So, and this is taken into account, it's operating dues. We have the special assessment, the 1144, then it goes up to 1178. Linda Bradley, actually, that's the mistake that she caught, where it was 1144. That's been updated now to correct that. And so you have the operations section up here, and then you have the capital section down here. So the capital section is just, what that's doing is it's going according to the capital spending plan of so far, what general management, what the managers actually feel that at this point in time, or best estimate of what projects will actually be purchased or worked on during these years. And okay, so then what this is built on, what's called baseline funding. So baseline funding just means, what would the dues have to look like in each one of those years where they want to do everything on that spending plan? What would the dues have to look like to keep your reserves above zero? Is all that means, just to keep the reserves, like the SURF fund, the roads fund, from dropping to zero. And this is what, under the current scenario, this is what this looks like with the dues fund. You have some big ticket items down here: Barn 8, clubhouse refurbishment, Area Z maintenance building, marina parking lot construction. These are all big ticket items that at this point, the board management, they don't know at this point when they will actually work on these projects. So they were moved to 2029 separately. And this is what it would look like if these had to be billed out as a special assessment. These would be the amounts you would be looking at: $368.64 for SURF, $83.01 for roads. But this all comes down to what they actually really want to do with this. They decide, oh geez, let's kick it to 2035, and obviously then it would fall off the spending plan altogether. But this is just a scenario right now. If I keep going on to the next page, this is just showing you a real detailed kind of breakdown of total number of lots: 3,138, developed lots 2,668, 470, and then you can see the breakdown of how these dues start to get calculated. And the same goes on for SURF and roads. I won't get too much into the weeds on these calculations, but if you were curious, this is the breakdown with this. For prior years, it was set at the 92% collection rate. For 2021, this is 95%. Now these pie charts in here, it starts off with the 2020 income sources. So basically, what you're seeing are the pie charts that relate to the 2020 budget that is in force right now. And this first pie chart talks about, this is based on 92% collections, developed lots, undeveloped lots. But the first pie chart is showing you the income sources coming in. So dues, like operation dues here, capital, your capital dues over here, mailboxes, really thin slice. And you'll see like net marina income, so on and so forth with this chart. The second chart, and this is the 2020 current chart. The second chart that follows, it shows a breakdown of what your dues pay for. This chart showed income sources, so it's also including capital stuff. This chart is showing you what your operation dues pays for, and this shows you slice by slice of basically what the operational amount of your dues goes to paying for, whether it's like accounting, facilities, maintenance, security, parks, rec, so on and so forth. The next chart, the next two charts that follow it now are using the 2021 draft budget, which we're talking about, which we have been talking about today and in the weeks before this. And the first chart, once again, is the income sources coming in. Now it's based off a 95% collection rate, and with the developed lots and undeveloped lots. And then the second chart that follows is a breakdown. Same chart as in 2020, but now a breakdown of what your operational dues will be paying for in 2021. The next page that follows this basically is, this is kind of a handy sheet because it's showing you the 2020 budget compared to the 2021 budget. So I'll just pick on accounting right here. So 2020 budget, counting 293,831, so that would match basically the bottom line amount for accounting in terms of revenues minus expenses. Then accounting, obviously we're not a revenue center, so we have essentially net loss 293,831 on the 2020 budget. Then on the 2021 budget, 299,449. So what you're looking at in accounting in this case would be revenues minus expenses, essentially net income in a sense, 2020 compared to 2021. And then this is showing you an increase over here, dollars, percentage change increase from the 2020 budget to the 2021 proposed budget right here. Down below, you'll see the operation stuff, since operations does have that recreation special assessment. So this is called out a little separately, and you'll see next to it like this rec, these rec things right here, these all belong together in a sense. So you have the recreation parks. So that special assessment, and rec is always considered, recreation, parks, pools. It's kind of like consolidated into one. And then you'll see the operations regular dues here, the operations net marina income right here. So this is the marina, this is the revenue minus the expenses, 2020 compared to the 2021 amounts right here. And then this is showing you bottom line, 2021. This is for the recreation. So this is the recreation amount proposed. So that's in 2020 budgeted $13,334 loss. 2021 budget for a $79 loss for recreation, which is rec, parks, pools. Grand total budget for 2020, the way the budget was set up last year, apparently $933. Net income 2021 budgeted zeroed out, so revenues equal expenses. The pages that follow this are the detailed pages of all the different department budgets. So you're seeing 2016. So the actuals right here, 2016, 17, 18, 19, 20. This 2020 actuals is May 31, 20. And the right, probably the two most important columns, 2020 budget and 2021 budget here. So, and then this budget percent change is comparing the 2020 budget that's in force right now to the proposed 2021 budget, line item by line item. These are all GL line items. And there's a detailed budget for, now we're looking at common costs. So, and the operating dues comes into the common cost, if you were curious where that would fall in what department budget. Here are the operating dues coming in right here. And then what would follow after that, this reserves thing just comes, we don't budget for reserves, obviously, during the operational budget setting phase. That whenever a reserve project is approved by the board, it just has a budget right there at the moment. So that's why you're seeing these just all come out zeroed out automatically in the budgeting software, since budgeting software is interested in the operations budget. So we could scroll past the reserves, and then it picks up again with accounting. So each department then has their own separate budget, facilities, so on and so forth. Now let's see if I'll scroll. These pages are about 50 pages just for this. So okay, now on this page, what you're seeing, so this is the page immediately following all the budget stuff, page 60. You're seeing what you're seeing is you're seeing the proposed 2021 FTEs. So this is FTEs, full-time equivalent by department. So if a department just had 2 part-time people that work for it at 20 hours a week, then the 2 combined would come up to 1 full-time equivalent. So these full-time equivalents, no matter what department, includes full-time staff, part-time staff, seasonal staff, and then it's all combined in terms of, if you added all their time up, how many people would you have working 40 hours a week, so to speak? You could think about it just like that. And so this is the 2021 budget, 37.77 people, and 2020 budget, 37.26, 2019, 36.31. So now you're seeing the FTEs by department according to the budget. These long pages that follow it, these are the spending plans. Of course, these are kind of complicated. I'll just scroll right to the bottom. We're looking at the SURF capital spending plan, but basically, there we go. Okay. So these numbers come off the reserve study. The numbers that come off the reserve study, then actually when it gets into this capital spending plan, then they can become moved around at the point. So even though something like the reserve study could say, like that barn, for example, I believe it was 2024, that barn was on the reserve study, says 2024. Now, since it's not certain at this point what they want to do with that barn or when, then those big ticket items have been kicked to the 2029 column as a placeholder, so to speak. There's a SURF budget, and then there's a road budget, which is the same. It follows the same format. And then these bottom line numbers are actually what's used, that kind of dues projection. That's what's used to form what the dues would look like according to this spending scenario year by year. Now, one thing I'll point out is, I'll just go right back up to that budget. All right. Okay, good. So this one, when we put this together, so we're deciding to show two of these types of versions. In this draft, what you're seeing is, this is just, as I mentioned before, baseline funding. So like, for example, in 2025, if you only wanted to work on those things in that spending plan, so basically the bottom line of the spending plans, of those spreadsheets at the end, then this is what your dues would look like. So basically it's taken into account, it's just kind of locking the proposed 2021 dues in place and projecting them out to the different years. So in 2025, if you just wanted to have a balance that was essentially above zero in a sense, then your dues would look like $145.69 for that year in 2025. Now in this one, which is the second link on the Sudden Valley website under the AGM, there's a second link. This is alternate dues scenario. What this is doing is this is smoothing it out. So for example, okay, so basically starting at about 2024, how you'll see the dues right here, $169.01. What you see in the next year in 2025, where the dues actually comes down to $145.69. Basically what we did is, if there were reserves at the end of that year and it could flow into 2025, then it smooths, then it takes that into account in terms of how much then the dues would need to be in those years. So we didn't just take like the 2025 and just drop it, just spend it down to zero. If there were any reserves left over from the year before, then it flowed into the next year and then was taken into account into those formulas, which in a sense, you can see that's what's causing the difference in smoothing out these dues from from looking more choppy like this, where it's 169, then it drops again, then it goes up and up. In here, then it's 169, then it looks more smooth across. So it's not, so the due scenario has not changed between those two charts. It's just how the reserves were carrying over from one year to the next.
Can I jump in here for a second, Joel? And where you really see the difference there is in that possible special assessment down in the bottom. You can kind of see how if in a scenario where you smooth them out, you have built up some reserves. And so then if you were to have some big projects in that 2029 time period, it would reduce, you'd have some money to already contribute to that. So that's kind of where you see that difference.
Yeah, and she's talking about this last footnote, which explains basically what the smoothing is doing.
Joel, there's a question from the audience. If you could please address it. I know we discussed this the other night. What are we basing the 95% collection rate on? I think possibly your insight into what's happening right now and why we feel that that's a valid number.
Yeah,
Hey, Linda, let me cut in here real quick. Are you finished, Joel?
yes, I'm essentially finished with the overview.
Okay, I just don't want this to go off the rails. So yeah, as Linda said, we have a question here on what is the 95% collection rate based, given the widespread fears of a possibility coming major U.S. economic downturn.
So the collection ratio, basically, it was starting until last year at the end of the year, actually, when I first came on, when, in the past collection ratios were based on like 92%, and this year 92%, last year was 91%. And then our collections historically kind of lately have been coming in higher than that, like ending the year with like 97% or so on and so forth. And so the higher the more the collection rate is actually increased, then that decreases the amount of dues that will be charged to cover the expenses. So then with this year going into the budget scenario, we were looking at the collections rate over the year, and we still felt that the 95% collection rate at this point, we could budget for that. Of course, we've been watching it over the months, and in July, which really encouraging to see, the collection rate was 98.2% for July. In June, the collection rate was, of course, I'm doing this off the top of my head, but collection rate for June was, gosh, I want to say it was like 94.6% for the month of June. And the year-to-date collection rate now for July is approximately, coincidentally enough, around 94.6% or so. Yeah, 94.6% year-to-date for the end of July. And we're kind of into the point now to where collection rates tend to get also better throughout the year. If we kept going on this, even in this year, we could possibly maybe see like a 96% collection rate ending out. And so for 2021, of course, they're right in terms of it is a projection, and we don't know what will happen in terms of how the pandemic keeps to play out, or if an economic situation worsens. So at this point, it's still a projection, they're right, and it's something that we're watching. But that's the background of what went into increasing the projection.
So the other question that we have in here is the budget high or not, and what are the major reasons?
You're talking about total expenditures? Is that the?
Mr. Brown, can you clarify your question a little bit?
Do we want to bring him over and see if he wants to ask it, or just type it in the chat?
Yeah, if he'd like to. All right.
Oh.
He said they were answered fully. I figured. Thank you.
Sure, yeah.
I guess if we want to open it up to up here, we have another question. Let's just take care of this.
Yeah, we do have a hand raised here. Shall I go ahead and bring Nancy on over?
Yeah, let's bring Nancy over, please.
There you go, Nancy.
Hi, guys. Good morning. I saw that nice pie chart for income, a nice pie chart for operational expenses. And what I think we're missing is a nice pie chart for where the capital expenses go by department, if possible. So we can look at something visually and just say, okay, this is where our capital is going. I realize a lot of it goes to roads, but then there are other places where it goes. And what this would give is a handle on how much capital golf takes. That's what I would like to see. I suspect there are a bunch of others who would like to see it also. And I wonder if it would be possible to put a capital expenses pie chart together. I suspect I could do it, but I'd rather you do it. Thank you.
Sure, yeah, you could do it if you wanted to. No, I'm just kidding.
Thank you, Nancy. Oh, sorry about that.
Is that something that can be implemented? What are your guys? What's the?
Well, I mean, like, yeah, typically, like whenever anyone presents capital requests to the board, it always relates to one department or another, like whether it's pools or, I mean, Nancy's right, whether it's pools or it's golf, like the irrigation system, you know, it's like $500,000. That's all golf, turf stuff.
Do we have any other hands raised?
We do. We have Raul here. I can bring him on over.
I'm going to let you take over this part, John.
Okay. There you go, Raul. Go ahead and ask your question. You may be muted at this time.
Okay.
There you go. Sure can.
All right. I had a water guy come over, did the meter. So I was curious and I asked him some questions, you know, the water consumption. So he gave me a bunch of answers. And so I had to do some investigation. So I called Lake Whatcom's Water and Sewer. Now, there was an increase in 2020 of $6.90, and that goes till February to February. And 2021, there's another one coming at $7.11 from next February to the following February. Now, I asked her, what is the exact cost of the water for cubic feet? So if you don't exceed 600 cubic feet of water, which is about 4,488.3 gallons, which would be 2 months, you would pay more, but the basic rate is $73.12 right now. The sewer itself, that's where it's expensive. It's $167.44. We know why that is. It goes all the way to Fairhaven to the treatment plant. But here's the bad news. I also was told by superintendent of water in Bellingham, there's a big project coming. It's called resource recovery. So it costs about $220 million. And part of that's going to be shifted over to Lake Washington Water and Sewer. Now we went round and round, back and forth. I tried to get him to give me a ballpark figure. Finally, I got him to say, you know, it might be this much. So they're in a contract right now. So they're talking about $11 million that Lake Whatcom Sewer would have to, well, these customers would have to pay. The other portion, Bellingham pays. Now, you know, that's going to be, he said roughly, he said, you know, don't quote me on it, but I said, just, you know, I know that. It's going to be between $20 and $30 a month. That would be probably starting 2022. So, you know, you do the math, and that's going to end up to a lot of money for each customer. So that's just something to keep in mind for the near near budget in the near future. That's going to put in some more pressure on this community. $20, if say it's $20 a person a year, we're talking for the whole, I just roughly put down 3,000. I know there's more residents than 3,000. That would be approximately 720,000 a year. So you do the math, that would take how many years to pay that off? And then, you know, it's not gonna be lower. So the sewer's gonna go up for sure. So is the water, but the water isn't bad. That's a pretty good deal. 4,488 gallons for every 2 months. It's not really, it's reasonable, and it's only 73.12. It's the sewer that costs a lot of money. So that's all I gotta say.
All right, thank you, Raul.
Yep.
And so we have Anne with her hand raised, and then we've got a few questions in chat here as well.
Let's go ahead and get to some of the chat questions. I see there's conversations happening in chat. If you guys could help us just kind of keep it to a question or comment, that would be awesome. I don't want to step on anyone's toes here, but it's kind of, I want to make sure everyone gets answered. I believe the first one down the list was, why hasn't the reserve study been made available to the directors? Is it normally presented so late in the budget process? Who is responsible for getting this study to them?
Be back to that question. Okay, I talked about this on Thursday. And so like with the reserve study, so what has to be closed out to the reserve study are all the 2019 capital projects, and which also involve all those surf loan projects. And then with that, also the finance committee at one point was they were kind of curious whether or not they could maybe remove Barn 8, put some component units back on in terms of like having more input. I talked to them probably around March or April and told them that that would be okay at that point. I'm talking about the reserve study people, and asked them at that point if that would be okay in terms of, like a delay in them getting that information. They said, sure, that's fine if you want to do that. And then after that, then it really came down to closing out the capital projects, like closing out some of those capital projects, especially the surf loan projects, was more time consuming than I anticipated, because I'm coming in here. I wasn't here during all the capital projects. And so I come in here and I've got all these capital project codes, and these codes have multiple kind of assets within it. I had to have Bruce from maintenance come over. We had to talk to Tyler, to try to ferret out what belongs to what in terms of what asset for closing that out. And it was time consuming. And on top of that, also, this is it's an unusual year in terms of the whole COVID stuff and people working remotely, like people out of the office working remotely, Bruce and other people that I would have talked to if it would have been easier if they were here at the time. So it's just, I guess you could say it was kind of a perfect storm in terms of like the timing of everything with the COVID, and with me coming in, picking up all of this from kind of square one. So that would, quite frankly, that would be the answer.
I add a quick comment. One thing that we do have, though, is we have that spending plan, which does list out all of the assets that we have. And that, the reserve study and that spending plan capital sheet are based on the same thing. And so, whereas the reserve study specialist could come back with some slightly different numbers, the basis of it all are the things that we have and we own. And any changes that we were going to make to that kind of thing is information that you sent to the reserve study specialist, correct, Joe? Like if you got information from information from the manager saying, we're not going to replace this piece of equipment. So those things would be known, and you could have updated that in the spending plan. Is that correct?
Yeah, and that's true. And that was another thing too, because I was also getting from department managers stuff, because in the past, I know people have talked about things kind of kicking around on the reserve study from year to year, like things that, things that shouldn't be on it. So I also got information from department managers to remove some annoying things from the reserve study as well that I wanted to do this time around. The reserve study and the audit were kind of dovetailing together in terms of closing out all the 2019 stuff. So then, because what the reserve study people, what they want is they want the 2019, anything that was added in the year 2019. And of course, once the year closes, like when 2019 closes out, it's also going to take a couple months just for invoices still coming in from contractors and stuff that will, from an accounting standpoint, apply to a 2019 capital project. But like what Karen was pointing out, everything that's on that reserve study in 2019, all those big ticket items, especially like when the concern was the dues going up to $400, I believe, in the year 2024. Well, that's the barn basically fueling that thing. That barn is not going to, meaning it's on the reserve study. The reserve study will list it as 2024. And when I talked to the reserve study people, there was some discussion about, well, can we just take the barn off and put the component units on instead? And then when I talked to him, he said, well, basically, when the board has a firm plan of what they really want to do with that barn at this point, it would just make sense just to leave it as is and then address that on the next reserve study when the board is more of an idea, like a solid idea of what they want to do with it. But the big ticket items that are on that reserve study, on the 2019 reserve study, and the replacement years, those aren't changing. Those will be on the next reserve study. And those big ticket items are the items that you really need to address. So those are items that that everyone has had basically on the reserve study at their disposal. And those are the items that will need to be addressed in the future, like coming up.
Hey, John, I have a question for you real quick.
Sure.
We just had an email come in that says, just wanted to confirm that, well, sorry, that's minutia portion of it, but has the setting changed on the Zoom town hall where I am unable to input my name and video in? Has anything changed with our settings at all?
No, it shouldn't have.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
If we could go to, I believe we still have some questions in here from the chat, but let's go to whatever you call the other one, the live in-person voice questions.
Oh,
And I believe Ann is next in line.
sure. We can bring Ann on over. There you go, Ann.
Hi guys, Ann Cope, 52 Louise View Drive. I have questions about the collections rate. So looking at last year's budget meeting, in July, the collection rate was 96%. And it was set for this year at 92% in the budgets. And when Sarah requested to raise it to, I believe, 94%, she was told absolutely not, there was no way to do that. So again, really confused how we can suddenly go to 95%. My other question is, as far as July, does the fact that the penalty part was ending July 30th and people were paying maybe several months of dues at once from previous months, does that affect why that collection rate was higher in July? That's all.
Thank you, Ann. Do we have a response?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I'll respond. Yeah, in terms of and with that collection rate last year when it was proposed, maybe raise it to 94%. I think you said. I would have been on your side on that one last year with a higher collection rate of 96%. Then I too would have been on your side and said, why don't you bump it up to 94% at that point? And then the second one, in terms of like a component of the collection rate would be total collections coming in, and sure, that also could very well be a factor of people paying more back dues in at the time as well. So yeah, that can certainly be a component of an increased dues rate for July.
Also, and just to chime in here real quick, I don't know how much people follow what the governor says, but still at this time going forward, we cannot collect interest on dues payments. The only thing we're allowed to collect starting August 1st now is citations and fines, any interest on those. But as far as the actual dues collection, that is a proclamation that has come from the governor. We are not allowed to collect again. So.
Yeah, I believe the date on that was September 1, which would mean August dues. So in the system, I've already, so for people, I can't remember if we covered this or not the last board meeting, but in the system, I have shut off billing any late fees for August because of that memo that we got from the governor's office.
Follow up to this. So whereas in any monthly collection rate, if people are catching up with back past dues, that could influence that monthly collection rate. But the year to date would, and that's what we typically follow, correct? The year to date would still be accurate in that you're not really collecting any, you're not counting any extra. It's just previous months that maybe were lower are now kind of smoothed out.
Yeah, that's, so basically how the collections works is that collection rate that you look at is what that's showing you is the operating dues only for that year. So when you say year-to-date collection rate of 94.6%, that's only pertaining to 2020 dues. If someone is paying like past dues from 2019, like December 2019, oh, I forgot to pay this, now they're paying it right now, that goes to UDR. And so that doesn't affect the operations collection rate. But to Ann's point, if let's say like in June or whatever, someone didn't pay their dues, and then now they're paying the dues in July, that will help out the July rate for the month to date for July. In terms of the yearly rate, it just kind of gets absorbed into the total yearly rate.
Joel, can you state again what through July, our year-to-date collection rate? Do you have that number? You stated the monthly, but I don't know if you said the year-to-date in this meeting.
Yeah, I'm doing this from memory, but I'm pretty sure this is the right number, 94.6% year-to-date for July.
Okay, thank you.
Anne has re-raised her hand. Should I bring her back? She may have a follow-up to that.
Go for it.
Okay.
Okay, Anne, I've brought you back over.
Thank you. So I just wanted to be really clear to the membership, because when they hear the collection rate is 98% in July, that sounds really good, right? But I want to make it clear that that's also including other months. This isn't typical. And the fact that it seems the year to date is actually lower this year than last year, and you're going beyond that to 95% in a year with extreme uncertainty in our future, just doesn't make any sense. When it was, not, people were unwilling to do it last year when we didn't have this and we had a higher collection rate. So again, that 90%, 98% is not, it's being used, I feel, to show that there's no financial hardship, that everybody's doing great. And I want to make it clear that 98% is not really accurate, because it's including other months as well. Thank you.
Joel,
All
is
right.
that something, sorry, is that something you could look into to see maybe how much of that for July collection rate is influenced by catching up with previous months, just for a future conversation?
I mean, I could see if I could kind of impute a number mathematically from that.
Okay.
So we have questions from Kyle and Margaret in the chat still waiting, and then we also have Nancy and Raul with their hands raised.
All right, let's go back and forth here. So let's go to the chat with Kyle's question. Thank you guys for your patience. Kyle's question is, I noticed in May 2020, association received $357K for applied forgivable paycheck protection. If I recall, 1 month of dues were waived. How does this infusion of cash impact the overall budget?
It would depend on when those dues become forgiven. So if they're forgiven during the 2020 year, then that would help out our bottom line net income. It would essentially be recorded on the financial statements as you could almost think of it like a debt forgiveness income amount. If it comes now, if the debt forgiveness falls into, say, like the year 2021, then year 2021 is helped out.
But we're not factoring PPP into our 2021
No.
budget at all. We're assuming that it will help to offset any loss of revenue in 2020, and that's it, regardless of when it gets recognized.
That's
Is that
right.
correct?
Yeah.
Would you like to bring a panelist over, John?
Sure thing. Let's go ahead and bring Nancy back on over. There you go, Nancy.
Hi again. I've been looking and I cannot find any way to tease out of your numbers how much we spend on the Community Association Institute, membership fees, dues, lobbyist fees, convention, symposium, and you can throw in the cost of that code of conduct thing that was actually a non-disclosure agreement that we went through a few months ago. Can anybody give me an idea? What do we spend on the Community Associations Institute? Remember, they're the ones who, through their lobbyists, took our right to vote on dues increases away from us. So for me, it's kind of a sensitive issue. Plus, while I'm still on, I really would like to see that capital expenses by department pie chart. I think it's really an important part of your other two pie charts for 2020 and 2021, just like the operations and income pie charts are. Thank you.
Correct me if I'm wrong here. I'm going to try and take a shot at this, and I hope that Joel, staff, and everybody else, I believe the association pays a yearly fee to belong to CAI. There's then sometimes staff training sessions that they go to. And I think there's at least one annual meeting for Washington State CAI that might be in there. But I think that's all broken out. It's probably a common cost sort of a thing that it goes under, or training and conferences for in some of the individual departments. But that's, you know, Joel or Karen can see if they can answer better than me.
Actually, because Linda, as you said common cost, I was actually flipping through the common cost statement to see if I could track it down in there.
This might be one that we'll need to follow up on because
I
I
think
think
so.
it's fairly detailed, and then put some information out in the future so that we can kind of keep. Are you okay with that, Joshua? If we research this one on the side and then.
Yeah, I'd rather you guys provide the real deal. So if it's okay, we have Kyle came back on his question. And we still have plenty of time, guys, so we're trying to make it through these chat questions. Kyle said, my question was more related to the 357K forgivable income, and really, why would we need the funds if our dues cover expenses? Can you verify the net monthly dues revenue? I would think that we would have only requested forgivable funding for that 1 month.
Well, the forgivable funding, the PPP, applies to like a performance period. It was initially 8 weeks, and then it depends on how many FTEs we have in a certain and then the forgivable amount is based off this formula, this long formula. But Congress then voted to extend that, so now basically the forgivable period could be through the end of the year. Essentially, you could think about it like that. So then we could compare how many FTEs we had like throughout the course of the full year to like hopefully maximize the amount of forgivable portion that we could take. Hopefully it's going to be all of it. And then it will fall under the, it'll hopefully then hit in the year 2020. But what it was, the forgivable portion was based off of, like on the documentation, I believe it was an average of a couple months of payroll.
So on to the next one.
I believe
hope that
Margaret.
answers- What's that?
I believe Margaret's question may have been next if we're going by chat.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Margaret asks, if I understand the chart correctly, why are marina costs increasing 74% next year?
I can take that one, guys. I'm Maddie, the rec manager. So that has to do with payroll costs that are being applied to the marina department now. We had an employee, Miss Andrea Herrick. She's on the video chat here too. She has previously worked in administration for the past 4 years, doing marina activities and also front desk activities there. But she transferred over to the recreation department starting this year, and her payroll costs are now being applied to marina. We did that because the amount of work that has to go into the marina department has become so significant it can't be effectively done remotely anymore from the administrative department. So she's down there in person now helping our members, on a daily basis. So she is a dedicated staff person to the marina, and that's the difference that you see there is her payroll costs are not being applied over there.
Thank you, Maddie. John, could you bring over Maria Perez, and then we'll go to Raul since he's already asked a question.
Sure. All right, Maria, I've brought you on over.
Hi, y'all. First of all, I wanted to lower my hand because after I address folks, I forget to lower it. So first and foremost, I wanted to thank all of you for hosting this town hall. My pronouns are she, her, hers. My name is Maria Perez de Henderson. I'm at 46 Maple Court. I wanted to let you all know that I'm sort of serving as a proxy for my husband, Richard Henderson. But I wanted to make the same comment here that he made on Thursday in regards to, I understand that you are giving us the current numbers, but you all need to understand that the financial impact that's coming to our state and to our largest employers hasn't been made. So if our collection rate is at 94.6 up until now, we're still getting some paycheck recovery assistance. We're still getting some CARES federal money. So the impact that's coming to our community, especially the Sudden Valley community, is going to be felt in the next few months. Largest employer who I'm very gracious to work for at Western Washington University, we are expecting furloughs in the month of November. Of course, we do our biannual budget and we are frantically attempting to cut costs everywhere that we can. But I believe that as board members, y'all need to really think about the drastic differences in a lot of the households and the incomes it's about to take effect in the future. Thank you for providing the numbers currently to date, but we really need to anticipate what our community members are going to be unable to pay in the next few months. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Maria. I'll go ahead and return you here to the attendees. And was there a response to that?
I'll just say, I'll take it under, we will take it under advisement. It is something that we're watching, the collection rate versus our current and historical data on collections versus, what's going on in kind of a macroeconomic or even a local economic scenario. It will be taken into consideration as we vote on the final budget and specifically that collection rate. So thank you.
All right, and I'll go ahead and bring Raul on over here. All right, there you go.
I forgot to just mention a couple of things real quick. I know there's probably people waiting. I'd first like to thank the board for keeping the dues as they are. I'm not in there, so I can't see all the figures, and sometimes it's a bit complicated. But particularly, I'd like to thank AJ. He's not there, but I like his feisty way of trying to come around to the a better way of perhaps lowering the cost and saving money for the people in this community. So thank you all for keeping it at the same rate. That's all I got to say.
All right, thank you. All right, should we move back to chat questions?
Yeah, I think Steve is next.
I believe Steve's questions are next. Oh, Josh, I think you're muted.
Were you reading my lips?
I can see you trying to say something.
Thank you. So Steve asks, what was our year-to-date collection rate through June? On page 11, why are we projecting the marina? Okay, that was answered. Go down 74.2% from 2021 from 95K to 24K.
Yeah, I can answer that. I kind of answered that before. That has to do with that transition of that employee over to the marina department. Some of the other increases we're seeing are an anticipated increase in cost for raw materials. So if you've been down there, that has a huge gravel parking lot and a ton of dry storage. And we're constantly trying to replace the gravel there. And so that's an increase there. And also we have some money built in for maintenance of our wet slips. It's under like building repair and maintenance or facility repair and maintenance. So that's where you're seeing those increases in cost.
And then Steve also had what was our year-to-date collection rate through June?
We haven't published the June financials yet, correct? But do you happen to have that, Joel?
Yeah, year-to-date through June will be, I believe 94.6%. Or, oh, excuse me, no, I'm thinking through July. Through June, it'll be 93.7%. Or 93.8, one of those two.
You're muted, Karen. Were you talking?
Hold on. So through May, it was 93.7, and I believe it went up in June. Those next Wednesday will be a finance committee meeting where we will have all the final June financial statements. So rather than kind of scramble here and say wrong numbers, so May was 93.7 and June financials should be published.
June is 93.8.
93.8. Okay, thank you.
All right, our next question comes from Cameron. If there is a question of, okay, I'm not muted. If there is a question of what future economics are coming, why don't we have a spending freeze? Bellingham is still projecting a $7.6 million budget loss, and it's the same story all over, at least to the end of the year and more likely longer.
Well, I'll just hop in here to say that we are watching expenses closely for this year. But this seems like it's more a question related to 2020 rather than 2021 going forward for the budget, which the big thing for the budget, the question is the collection rate and how the economics going on around us would affect that collection rate.
I think too, there's that page that's part of, and I know we don't have it up now, of what the individual departments increases or decreases are from 2020 to 2021. If I'm not mistaken, there's each department wrote down and it shows what their expenses were. And I don't have that right now, but I know that that's all spelled out and it kind of shows, you know, exactly how well we're doing as far as controlling our expenses and stuff. Because he's talking about a spending freeze and we definitely don't have that. But I know, and as Karen said, we're watching what we're doing this year. So that's kind of the answer.
Yeah, and that's a good one to look at too, actually, Linda. So if you look at the total, there's some changes per department. but the total change in the 2020 budget versus the 2021 proposed expenses is, or proposed change is 0.2%. So it's quite small.
So our next question or comment, I guess there's a question here. From Connie, it says, it seems contradictory to say on one hand, we project a high collection rate, while on the other hand, say the government loan will pay for a shortfall. What do we expect, a high collection rate or a shortfall?
Well, in terms of for the PPP loan, like when we applied for that because we were legally entitled to apply for that. So if we wanted to make sure at the time that that Sudden Valley got a cut of that as much as we could get to, and especially back then at that point when we were forgiving the 1 month of dues as well to take that into pad any sort of possible shortfall going on in 2020. Because back then at the time when it was applied for, of course, everything was just so up in the air. But anytime we were given an ability to take some free money like that EIDL grant, which was $10,000, we took it to help out Sudden Valley.
So I wanted to add a comment here that our collection rate does not include April, where we forgave dues. So we could have a high collection rate. I guess high is relative, but we could have a higher collection rate for all those other months. That doesn't mean it will make up for the shortfall of forgiving April dues. And so that is what the PPP funds are for, plus any additional that we might not collect. But I agree with Joel, when we applied for it, we really had no idea what it would be, but the data so far has been encouraging that it has trended back upward rather than going down below. And so we are actually, our year-to-date collection rate, taking April out of that, is higher than budgeted for 2020, which is encouraging. But in no scenario do I see that our collections making up for forgiving April dues. And Joel, correct me if I'm saying any of that wrong.
Yeah, in terms of like April, how that affects our collection rate right now, the collection rate that you see now is actually, it's very, in a sense, apples to apples from last year, because in the system itself, when we didn't charge dues for April, then I essentially just told the accounting system, no dues are coming in April, so forget about it, in a sense. So those formulas know that it never was expecting that money to come in April. So in a sense, it kind of is blind to April, like April is cut out of it. So that collection rate is a good collection rate for the months that we've had this year.
Kyle Studebaker, that last name's awesome. I just want to say that if you have more questions, throw them in there, or if you want to get on the phone or the voice, you can ask more too. So currently we are out of questions, but I'm sure more is going to pop up here. Oh, here comes one. Last year, the projected collection rate was set below the actual. This year, with an uncertain future and warnings from nearly all economic advisors, there is a plan to have a projected dues collections rate set above the actual. It makes no sense.
Sorry, I couldn't click the unmute. I'll just respond to that it's something that we're watching, and we have one more month of data to come in before we make the final decision, and it's absolutely a concern and a consideration. So thanks, Anne.
You know, it might be a good time if there aren't any more questions out there in the audience. We've still got staff. We have Brian Krulak, who is golf director. We have Maddie, that's rec director, Bruce Bishop, maintenance. You know, Norm is with us, Andrea, that does the marina. If anybody has specific questions for them, it might be a good time to ask if they have any questions, since we're kind of at a pause for questions in general.
And I'll kind of reiterate what Josh said at the beginning as well. Communications@suddenvalley.com. If you come up with something after the meeting, or if you have to leave, something like that, just send an email to communications@suddenvalley.com, and you're welcome to ask your questions there as well.
Thank you, John. We have a question from Margaret. Maybe you already have alternate plans, but where would you make cuts?
Am I to assume that that is for the individual managers or any of them that want to speak about that? I'm going to say, like, if, for instance, if we did need to bring the collection rate down, maybe where are some areas that we could see some cost savings?
I guess I got a directive to reduce my budget. So next week, Jacob and I are going to be working to reduce the golf budget, and then be looking at seasonal labor, a little bit on the supply side, but primarily we'll be looking at where we can find some cuts that can be made to seasonal labor.
Should we just go through the list of managers here?
I can go next. Rec is unique in that our funds are guaranteed through a special assessment. So those funds were locked in for the 5-year period that the community approved it for. So each year we are guaranteed a 3% increase. And so we work really hard to try and make it project next zero. And like Joel said, we're projected to be $79 over budget, something like that. And we can definitely make it net zero, but we look at our costs on a month-to-month basis that Joel, provides us. And as we're going along, if we're seeing some dramatic scenario with the economy, we can always cut back, because we're looking at those numbers, every single month. But for rec, it's just a little different compared to the other departments.
Mr. Bishop?
Okay, we're kind of down to the bottom of the line right now with their people. It'll depend on how many facilities still operate. I'll say probably 85% of our work right now is dedicated to roads, culverts, and things like that. So cutting back, I don't see a cut in our department in personnel. Probably spending, I guess, if we do go ahead, and I'll look at Maddie if she's able to open next year in the rec department, so we'll move ahead. We may have to cut back on some of the service to the marina and dedicate more of our personnel over there. But yeah, marina probably would be one area, some of the storage areas, definitely some of the roads for sure. Spending on materials in that area, equipment.
Hey, Brian, I have a quick question for you. I mean, some people were asking about this. I don't have the paperwork in front of me right now, but is the advertising budget for golf 10K again this year?
For 2021?
Yes, next coming year, sorry.
We projected 10,000, yes.
Okay. Some folks were asking about the commercial that airs. I know typically, you would make a deal with like the local TV provider and they put it on certain channels. Is that what we do here? Like, do you pick which stations they go on, or how does that work?
Yeah, so I have a sales rep that I work with at Comcast. And so I pick areas where we're able to air the commercial. Unfortunately, we're limited to Washington State, which this year turns out to be a good thing because we don't have any Canadian customers coming down. I would love in a perfect world to advertise up in Canada, but it's very cost prohibitive. So I found that the best value we get is with Comcast. And we were able to, I'm able to pick what types of programs I want to air on. Most of it is golf specific programming. And then what regions. So I can choose how heavily I want it to be focused on Whatcom, Skagit, Island counties, and then also down to Snohomish, and if we choose to go as far as East King County.
Okay, that's awesome. I also was curious about, one of the courses closed, right? So we were expecting to get customers from there. Are you
Correct.
having people at the front desk like ask how, have you heard from about us and stuff like that? Like what kind of metrics are you putting together on that?
Yeah, we do. And TV is, as you probably know, is difficult because a lot of it ends up being word of mouth. But we did, because of the, because we're relying more on public play this year because of the effect of COVID on outings. We did actually try to increase our TV presence a little bit and skewed it down south. Because of course, Eaglemont closed in Mount Vernon, we had a sense that we had more of an opportunity to pick up play from down south, and that has borne out. Unfortunately, the metrics are very anecdotal. So we do ask customers where they heard about whenever somebody says they're a new customer, we ask where they heard about us. I had a great conversation with a couple of people from Everett yesterday, not yesterday, a couple of days ago, about how they found us, and it was the TV commercial, and they just could not rave enough about the golf course and the value that we have here compared to the courses down south. So we are making a decided effort to expand our reach southward based on the fact that the Canadian border is closed. And we were helped out by the fact that the course down in Mount Vernon closed, and also helped out by the fact that Kevin Leduc, our head professional, comes from that area, used to work at that golf course. So he has a lot of connections. He has helped through his efforts, probably 20 to 30 new members that were members at Eaglemont that he had contacts with, who he enticed to come up here and try Sudden Valley. And they've been falling in love with it. Just this morning, we had 3 groups in a row from Skagit County who had played here rarely, but they had heard how good the golf course was, how the kind of condition that Jacob and his team had the golf course in. And so they came and played. That was more of a word of mouth thing as opposed to directly attributable to TV advertising. But that's very powerful in our industry, like most industries, but probably more so in golf. Word of mouth is really powerful. Golfers talk about a lot amongst themselves about the experience they had. So it's powerful, and it's exciting for us to see that we have had the ability to expand our reach southward a little bit.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Yeah, I think some of the fear from some people was like, oh, I saw this on Fox. And it's like, yeah, that would probably go beyond the budget that we have to have it on a national commercial. So I know how they normally work with, parsoning out locally. So I just wanted to clarify that for some folks.
Yeah, it's Josh, it's strictly through cable, strictly through Comcast. So we're able to pick and choose, and we are lucky that we can sneak into an ESPN broadcast here and there, but we're certainly not making direct buys.
Yeah, no, I figure that. I mean, I think on average, you guys is spending like $7,000 a year on TV or something like that. So
correct.
That's good.
Josh?
Yeah.
If I can interrupt for a minute, I have somebody who's watching this on TV, so they can't type in or log in for a question. The question's for Andrea, and it has to do with the marina. And the question is what she's going to be doing during the off season in marina, and will she have rec responsibilities, or will you be doing other things? That's kind of the question I got.
So this being my first year down at the marina, there is a lot of preparation that takes place to prepare for the renewals that actually start in February. So during those slow months, I have to get together with Gillen Accounting, and we have to make sure that everything matches and everything's billed properly.
There is also a lot of research that I'm going to be doing amongst other marinas with pricing and how they have things set up. There's a lot to do there.
Yeah, and just to add to what Andrea says, she also does all of our the management of Area Z. So where you do storage of your RVs, that kind of thing. She manages that whole facility, and she does all of our reservations for the community center, the adult center, picnic shelters. You know, that's a year-round thing too, because we have lots of clubs and classes and private rentals at the community center. And she supports the events that happen. They're obviously not happening right now, but she plays a big part in putting on those events for the community.
Thanks, Maddie.
Okay, thanks guys for answering.
Thank you.
So we're back to golf here. Question about the projected golf cart expense for 2021. 350 to 375K coming out of capital. Why is this not being repaid to capital as a loan? In the real world of business, this is a loan and would be repaid from golf cart revenue. As of now, this income stays in operational revenue and nothing gets repaid.
I guess I could just speak to, I mean, we view the carts as a capital expense. We did a capital lease for those carts. I think oftentimes capital purchases result in operational revenue. Certainly is the case with the golf carts. We had a very successful 5-year capital lease with the carts, in which we have now used them through 7 years. So we had 2 years of two seasons of being able to operate them without any kind of capital expense, based on the fact that they were very high quality carts. They were really very well maintained by our staff. So basically achieved our goal of having a 5-year capital lease with a $1 buyout, and then essentially operating them for 2 years with no expense. But they have pretty much met their useful life, and so we will be looking to go into another capital lease, or as Linda and I have talked about in the past, we'll also explore operational lease, and we'll make the decision with respect to which route is better to go.
Thank you, Brian. So let's go back to our managers here. Norm Smith is pinging me to tell me that I'm not doing my job correctly. But can you take it away, Norm?
Certainly, and I security budget, which you see, or public safety, you're looking currently, submission is almost the same as last year, but if we had to, we're looking at reductions, more than likely phone calls that come into their dispatch center. It can be as low as 250 or as high as 500 a month. So we'd have to look and working on how to put a freeze on that as well. And other things as well, we'd have to look at the emergency preparedness committee's budget line item that's in there. It's currently 4,500. That might have to just sunset to zero. So those are some of the, what this does is eventually limit services for public safety for this department, and also for our programs of hazardous trees and trying to get our urban forest in a better shape than it is today. So that's the historical things that have been done when I've been asked to have to put a knife to my throat and get to decide which direction to pull it. So that's kind of the numbers and what you would be looking at.
Lisa, do you have anything for admin? Lisa?
Sorry, I didn't realize I was muted. Just talking to myself. I don't have anything to add unless there's specific questions. We did go over everything I thought in the budget presentations and also answering questions on Thursday. So if there's any other specific questions, then I'm happy to answer them. There was a question regarding budget cuts, and I know that the majority of our admin budget is reduced rather than increased for 2021.
Thank you, Lisa.
Mm-hmm.
back to golf, there's a follow-up here on the golf carts. Capital cash comes from, oh no, questions are coming as I'm reading. Capital cash comes from us, the membership. Essentially, you're using our money freely. The lease is money being paid out and not being replenished, except for us, the membership. Guess that's more of a comment.
Yeah, I'm not, I think that sounds more like a comment, and I'm not certain how I would respond to that.
We do have a hand raised.
Yes.
I'll go ahead and bring Maria on over.
Wait,
Can I
hold on
have-
1 second.
Sorry, while you're doing that real quick, there was another one from Kyle saying beyond monthly dues, can you verify what our other revenue streams are, if any, an approximate annual impact? And Kyle, I'm going to direct you to on the website are the, right under that AGM link is some budget materials, and you'll see the detailed department budgets, but I would direct you to the one that says all department summary. And there is probably 2.5 pages of detail of our various revenue streams. So dues and golf income actually split up into a few different categories, marina income, Area Z, lease income, a whole bunch of different things. And it's actually trended over several years. So you can see the actuals, the 2020 budget, as well as the 2021 budget. And it's quite a bit of detail there. Okay, sorry to interrupt there.
No problem, Karen.
Actually, I'll also add too, like if you wanted to see specific department by department on the budget sheets or that where it lists each department separately, like the budgets, the first part of each department will be the income section of it. So you'll see all the GL line items of the various income streams coming in. Then the second part of that is the expense section. So if you wanted to drill down into like a department, you could also look at it that way as well.
We looked at, and there's maybe another place for people if they're just looking for a summary, our dues and our assessments that we pay for 2021 are going to make up $5,110,780. There will be non-assessment revenue out of operations of $1,266,690. So it's sort of a summary of kind of how much we're paying and how much we're getting just summarized in other operating revenue.
Do it, John.
All righty, I'll bring Maria on over here. There you go, Maria.
Hi, y'all. Again, Maria Perez de Henderson, 46 Maple Court. Again, serving almost as a proxy for my husband. I've slightly been participating in your previous Board of Meeting Directors and in your budget meeting, et cetera. But I would like to know where I'd be able to look. I believe this was published a few weeks back. I'd like to know, for example, we're just, Maddie, by the way, hi, for Andrea's position. So I'd like to know if every single position via in the marina, in the golf, if it is a 12-month contract, for the reason that there are some 9-month contracts, 10-month contracts, 11-month contracts. I'd like to know where to find that information. And then secondly, I don't know if it's already been proposed, but I think the managers for verbally telling us what they're thinking of their cuts being, but I'm a more tangible person and I'd like to see something in writing in regards to what they are proposing to cut for the budget before the decision or the vote is made. In regards to what Norm Smith was saying, in regards to cutting some of the hazardous tree area. Again, we only moved in March, so we're still getting to know, but I would feel that security and safety, especially going into the fall and winter season, I would not feel very comfortable as a community member that was being considered to be cut, for the reason that just on our street on Maple Court, there are so many branches going into the road that are actually currently scratching our vehicles when we drive back and forth. And Bruce, you haven't taken care of it because I haven't emailed you. So sorry, I will put that email out to you this week. So I'm a little, I'm like, when you start messing with my safety, with the safety of my family and of my community, I'm a little concerned there. So I guess long story long, I'd like to see a proposal from each department, what they're considering to cut. I know that today is more electronic, it's more Facebook, it's more Twitter, less printing, less mailing for some marketing and publication or promotions area. So I think that's what I'd like to see. One, to know if all contracts for employees are 12-month or if there's a consideration of going to a reduced 10-month or an 11-month or 9-month contract, for the reason that I'm thinking the marina is only really busy during some months. I definitely understand long-term planning processes, but as an academic advisor with a child, I was asked if I would be willing to do a 9-month contract, and that may or may not work for families, et cetera. And then again, if managers could put in writing what they're proposing to reduce. Again, in Bruce's department, I hail my hat off to them every day because they keep our community safe. And the area that I walk and not currently play with because we can't use the play structures, but I would want constant upkeep in regards to those areas for the reason that I don't want a drain being clogged and flooding homes or et cetera. So my 2 requests, if they can be considered, would be greatly appreciated. Thank you all.
Thank you, Maria.
Can I add to that just for a moment? I do hear the concern with, the marina, and it's not full-time, but honestly, it is a full-time job. And I do other things aside from the marina. I'm just here seasonally to be helping people, but that 2.5 to almost 3 months, I need to have time to catch up and make sure all of my records are current. There is a lot that goes into the marina renewal, which I've got marina folks reaching out to me in January. So it's really important to have those couple of months to plan for the following year. I would love for anyone who's curious about this position and what I do here. I would be so happy to meet with anybody in the community, any board members that have any questions or don't really know what I do, because it was a new position this year. I really needed to be removed from admin to do my recreation job to the best of the ability for the community. So I would be so happy to meet with any of you. Please reach out via email or call me. I'm happy to meet with you. Thank you so much.
Josh, there's a question from somebody online for Andrea while she's up here. It's from Trang Warline. It says, there's been a lot of chatter online about how Area Z has a waiting list. Is there any plans on expanding that area so more people can store their RVs and Sudden Valley would be able to generate more income in that area?
Absolutely. That is a part of my rocks. We have rocks quarterly that we work on that are bigger projects than weekly duties. My focus once Marina slows down is I would like to clear out Area Z and make it more cohabitable. There are some spaces that are unrentable at this time just due to weather and water and muck. And so that is a plan that Maddie and I want to meet with Bruce, the maintenance manager, so we can coordinate that once all of their veg control is done. In the future, I would absolutely love to expand Area Z as I do have a wait list, and that would create and generate more revenue for Sudden Valley. So that is in my future plans. It's just finding space that we can use in Area Z. So that is something that we will be meeting with Bruce about in the future.
Okay, thank you. I just thought since you were here, I'd ask the question.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Absolutely.
Next up from Anne, is there a reason that we can't get actual tracking of users of the golf course? A lot of discussion is vague and anecdotal evidence is not very helpful.
What type of tracking information, I guess? We track rounds, member rounds, public rounds, outing rounds. We have about an 8,000 person email list that we have some demographic information on, but it's based on what people are willing to provide So I guess I'm not totally clear on what else she's looking for.
And can you provide a little clarity on that? And in the interim, we'll move over to Nancy, if you could, John, and then Kyle.
Absolutely. There you go, Nancy. Brought you on over.
Hi, I realize that golf is not going to change voluntarily anyway. The current system where capital pays for the golf course or the golf carts, and the income from rental of the golf carts does not go back to capital. It stays in whatever golf decides to spend it on. Can the board of directors by vote change that to golf repays the capital fund? I don't know where this came from. It's not normal in a business to just take capital and not have to repay it, to divert it somewhere else. So perhaps it can be undone administratively. Any ideas out there?
I don't know if this is an idea, but maybe an explanation. I mean, there's lots of capital items that produce revenue. So the mowers are capital items. By maintaining the golf course, they create the revenue. So, I mean, a lot of our different capital items go in to create golf revenue. I'm not aware of, of a requirement for direct repayment of capital funds based on the revenue stream they create. If that's a requirement, that would be new to me. Joel, do you have
I don't know if I'm still on. Oh, I am.
Yes,
Thank you.
You're still over here, Nancy.
Thank you. I'm interested in the rental income from the golf courses or for the golf carts. It's really a clear sort of thing. The capital cost of the mowers and all that is more obscured, but the revenue stream from golf cart rentals is a really concrete piece, really concrete number. And that would be easy to repay, well, easy to calculate the capital repayment on. Could the board of directors vote to require that repayment?
Nancy, I want to try and answer this, and I hope Brian's going to help me, and maybe it's not relevant anymore. There used to be a formula for a fleet of cars, how much they made over cost. And I've seen this a long time ago, and I'd have to go look back in my stuff. But there's a formula to determine all of this. This is how much they make per, and it actually figures out to per cart. So you figure out how big of a fleet that you really can have for an association. Brian, I'd have to look it up. I found this long ago, and I actually think it came from Club Car.
Yeah, I'm not sure, Linda, about that. I think I can maybe recall seeing something, but there's so many variables based on property that would go into that. Boy, that'd be I think a pretty difficult number to come up with. I mean, certainly that the revenue, golf cart revenue is a very concrete number. Then there's also expenses involved in the golf carts, the fuel, the maintenance, the cleaning, based on different hourly wages in different parts of the country. I mean, that would be a very complex, I would think, calculation to make that would be very, very location specific.
Nancy, I'll promise I'll go look on there and see if I can find it. It just has to do with fleet size and if you can roughly tell if your carts are making money enough to justify the size of your fleet of your cars. That's all. But I promise I'll go look for that. I know I've got it buried in my stuff somewhere.
I'm kind of looking at a more simplistic view. In a lot of real worlds, the golf course would get a loan for the golf carts, lease their golf carts or buy them or whatever, and then from the income off the golf carts, repay the loan. That's the kind of setup I'm looking. I think would be completely reasonable.
Hey, Brian, can I jump in from a capital policy perspective? And Nancy, absolutely, I believe the board can change our capitalization policy. However, there's also we can't just do it whatever we want, is my understanding. So I don't know if it would be allowable under accounting rules or whatever to carve out a specific piece of it. One thing I do know, and I don't know if this is just our policy or if it is a GAAP accounting requirement, that we can't use operations funds. Oh no, I'm going backwards, but we can't use capital funds for operations and vice versa. So we would really, really need to look into the details of that capital policy and what our requirements are and what the board can change and what is required according to accounting policies. And luckily, Joel just walked back to his seat and he can fix everything I just said and set us straight.
Karen, unfortunately, you misspoke just a little bit, and Joel can chime in. You can, under certain circumstances, use capital reserves to run operations. However, at that point, it is a loan against the capital reserve to the association. So you would have to pay it back. You'd have to have an amortization schedule and everything broken out fully for that. That is the only time that funds can ever be commingled as far as capital reserves back to operations. Now, operations can always go in and fund capital projects. That's the difference.
I think that's why for a while, and Brian would have to plan for it in his budget, and it's clearly not planned for in this year's budget, of rather than making the cars a capital lease, an operational lease, because then indeed what Nancy refers to of the revenue or the operational revenues from golf would pay for those cars.
I mean, because currently how it stands right now is our capitalization policy is anything that's cost $2,500 and has useful life in 1 year or more has to go in front of the board. So everything that you spend on capital, no matter what the department is, like a good example would be marina. You know, like people have to pay for those dry slips, wet slips, kayak rentals, canoe. And so it'd be like telling marina, well, you know, we just did some soft armoring and we put that standpipe and the gangways in. You need to take the revenue from the slips and then pay back for those capital items. Or it'd be like counting the title transfer fee, like when someone buys a home, $125 plus a quarter of 1%. Well, that $125 portion of it goes to operations. That actually shows up on the accounting budget. And now, let's say the board approved to buy new computers for the accounting department, which would be a capital purchase. It's over $2,500, whatever. Then it'd be like saying, okay, well, that $125 of that title transfer fee, you need to take that money now, pay back the capital account for those computer purchases. So if you did it to golf, it's almost like you seemingly have to do it to every single department because capital purchases apply to every single department.
I don't think you need to do it for everybody, but exactly the same. But, you know, this is something that can be discussed. I realize for next year's budget, it's not possible. But when you look at where our capital goes, we really need to take a hard look because our dues have to replenish it. Thank you. I've beaten this horse enough for today.
Okay. All right.
Thanks,
Well,
Nancy.
thank you, Nancy. You have a good day. I'll bring you back to the audience.
Hey, John, let me get to an emailed question real quick, if you don't
Yeah.
mind.
Absolutely.
And then we'll go to Kyle. So this one's a doozy. Bear with me here. What is Recreation doing to reassess and reevaluate how the community will engage with the programs funded under the Rec Special Assessment under the new normal? I guess the new normal is our COVID times. As Maddie confirmed, rec revenues are pretty much assured. So are those funds being utilized to ensure the rec department is addressing our changing needs under COVID and moving forward? Are alternatives to our indoor programs being considered, providing outdoor rec fitness facilities for Sun Valley residents? Are there plans for outdoor workout areas with equipment?
Yeah, so I can try and take that on. So under the rec special assessment, like you know, the funds can only be spent on the things within that special assessment. So those funds are reserved. They're not going anywhere. Right now, we're obviously way under budget because the community center is closed. The staff's not there right now. Something that our community might not know is, those exercise instructors, those club activities, those are all run by community members. They're not on staff. We're not paying them to do those things. For our exercise instructors, we take a portion of the income that they make as rent, pretty much, for using our facility. So we can't make these people put on these activities for us because they're really more like contractors. What we have offered, and we've been working with our clubs and classes, is we have three actually activities right now that are being offered online. So there's like Senior Strength for Life and boot camp that's being offered online by David Herrera. He's a member and a fitness instructor. And then Dance Blast is another one that's free to our members, and it's held online as well, and by one of our community members as well. The main thing is that we have a very limited number of staff right now. I'm the only staff member whose funds are applied to the community center budget that's currently working. So we are hoping to do some more things, but we're really limited by what Washington State is allowing us to do. They recently changed a lot of the fitness center allowances, and they are requiring like 300 square feet of space for every one person within a facility. Our gym's extremely small, so we'd only be able to have like up to 7 people maximum in the gym at any one time. Normally we have up to 80 visits to the gym a day. We're only allowed to have 5 people in the lobby at one time. So we're extremely limited by what Washington State is doing, but we're very open to what members are interested in. So we can work with people if they have individual ideas. We're trying to get some of our instructors to do outside instruction, but even then you can only have up to maybe 12 people for a class. So we're open to suggestions.
Hey, Maddie, while you're here, there was also a question that came in from Trang regarding the pools. So since we're in phase 2 and the pools can't open, have we laid off the lifeguards for the year? I just wanted you to state that.
Yeah, we put out an announcement at the end of July that unfortunately we would not be able to open the pools this season. So obviously that affects the employment, of those lifeguards.
And I also wanted to add to that, if people have ideas of how we can better serve our community from a recreation standpoint, we have Parks and Trails meetings typically am I saying this right, Maddie, the last Tuesday of every month. And I think those are a great place to kind of come and talk about some ideas that we have, so we can meet the needs of the community, particularly in this weird time that we're all going through together.
Maddie, if you wouldn't mind, just one thing to add to what Maddie's discussed with what we're limited by the state of Washington has to say. Anything that we would consider, that has to be run through the Public Health Service to make sure that they're okay with it. So anything, we just can't, for example, open up the outside fitness per se, unless we write a safety plan, address the sanitation aspects, talk about usage. That has to go to public health. It's just not something we can do in our silo of excellence here. We just have to work with the governing agencies to do it. Is it possible? Yeah, but it has to be done in a manner to not have yourself be issued fines and citations, which was done on the east side of the mountains for a lot of the gyms that opened and were operating as they thought best. And LMI said, no, you don't. So these are a lot of things that we look at all the time, and we continue to do so. And I can tell you, coming from whatever public health says, it may change up to sometimes every other day. So Maddie continues to look at it. I look at it. We talk. We brief Joe on it. And so if there's ideas out there, just understand it just can't be implemented at the drop of a hat. There has to be a certain amount of strategic planning put into that. Just a point of clarification.
All right, guys, we're getting short on time. So John, could you move over to the panelists and bring Kyle in?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll bring Kyle right on over. And you are free to talk, Kyle.
Might have to unmute yourself, Kyle.
There you go. Can you hear me now?
Sure can.
Okay, great. First of all, thank you for hosting this. This is my first town hall. I'm a recent homeowner. I purchased my home last year in June. I am an absentee homeowner. However, I live in California. My daughter lives in the house. So I've unfortunately been limited to my travel up to the area due to the current COVID. I wanted to just maybe put in perspective some of my comments. And I don't want to oversimplify things, but I see the dues as we are self-sustainable at the end of the day. And in terms of long-term planning, my background is I am in facilities management finance for a large university in California. So I love facilities and I love all that you do. So I have concerns when I think there's such heavy focus on budget cuts and the amount of conversation or dialogue around the collection rates. So as a self-sustaining organization, it appears for the most part, granted I'm new, that I think you guys have been doing a great job. I'm sure there's always room for improvement. But I would be concerned about reduction of services. I would be concerned about taking any shortcuts, especially when it comes to security or infrastructure. This is now a great opportunity that you've got to look at deferred maintenance. And also you want continuity of staff. When you're talking about your marina, that's not a 9-month or an 8-month job just because it's utilized heavier during certain months. Yes, it's seasonal, but at the same time, the behind the scenes and the administrative aspect of all the things that get done with all the services that you provide, I think need to be taken into account. So I do think that my own perspective of where all the questions are coming with respect to the golf is, and I'm not as up on things. I do read all the notices I get and the Sudden Valley Bulletin I receive. I do think part of that is coming from the non-member use. So from that, I think it's just putting it in perspective for individuals that what percentage of the use of the golf course and its facilities is non-member. And, I view this as, when you're paying your dues, whether you utilize all of the services or not, you're there to support the entire array of services. So again, I don't want to simplify it, but we are self-sustainable. I would not be, I'd be concerned if we're focused on cuts and not really focused on, doing our due diligence and being cost effective in how we execute our agreements and the services that are being provided. So thank you. And I plan to be more engaged Now that you guys are doing Zoom meetings, which is not, I'm going to add it to my resume this year. I think actually it's a great opportunity for the community to be more involved. I know that I will be able to be more involved now that Zoom is here. So I do hope, not that I want the in-person to go away, but I hope the Zoom aspect continues once in-person meetings come back. Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle. Josh, there is one question in here in the chat that might be real quick to answer from Steve. When a hazardous tree is removed, do we keep the lumber or are we able to sell it?
Yes, so I'm gonna pair that with Ann's question too. So we have, as you said, when a hazardous tree is removed, do we keep the lumber or are we able to sell it? And then from Ann, it says, listening to Norm, it sounds like our very important things are cut, no pun intended, from our budget, such as trees, safety, emergency preparedness. But when it comes to other departments such as golf, rec, and the marina, I don't hear those same dire consequences. This has been and continues to be a point of contention in the community that cuts seem to be made to the most important areas.
I'll take the trees, Josh.
Okay.
Usually when we fall a hazardous tree, it's not salvageable. It's because it's dead. The wood is pretty much rotten. In those cases where they're around a home and they could be used, in order to cut the tree down safely, that's cut in unmarketable chunks, like 4 feet. So the answer, no, the wood is not marketable once it's down. What we do though is we've got to place at Area Z. Wood that is could be used for fireplace wood or such, that's free to the residents to come and cut and take, and it goes quite fast. It's quite a popular project, if you will, for the valley. Now, as far as the rest of that, I can't address.
And also, Josh, what Bruce and I's experience has been with a lot of our hazardous trees in the state of the urban forest, there's not a lot of salvageable lumber out there right now. We've got a lot of decay and disease, and as it falls down and removed, there's very, very little things that's not salvageable except for a personal use type of deal. So maintenance does a really, really good job about making that available, but we have not gotten into logging per se because most of our trees are just not going to make the grade for having any kind of remuneration return.
Now, how about the making cuts to such as the hazardous trees and emergency preparedness, but measuring that against other departments? I could see the hazardous trees being I know we voted like 60 grand one year for hazardous tree removal.
Yeah, and that's also what's in the budget this year. All I can comment on effectively is what's in the ACC security budget. And that's where cuts would have to be made if they were mandated to do so. As far as the other departments go, I'm not the manager of those things, and that's going to have to be submissions from that manager up to the GM to review those. That's not an area I can comment in.
Josh, just kind of my point of view on the hazardous trees.
Uh-huh.
I was asked where we would cut. There's no place that we could cut. So that's the type of things we look at as a whole. You want to cut maintenance. I'll use maintenance staff as an example. If you do that, then you don't have snow plowing. You don't have reaction to storms, trees across the roads, things like that. Where else can we cut? But from where the, I'll say hazardous tree budget is, emergency preparedness, that's about where we're at, what we're faced with, as each department has to look at what we can do and what we can cut.
Thank you, Bruce. John, could you bring Maria over again?
Absolutely. Maria, I'll go ahead and bring you over here, and you are back in with the group.
Hi, y'all. Again, Maria Perez de Henderson, 46 Maple Court. Again, as time closes, wanted to say thank you all for this opportunity to allowing our voices to be heard. I just wanted to let you all know that I just consider myself a consumer. I am paying and I expect something in return. So for anybody, and especially myself, especially this organization, we just want to know that y'all are being good stewards of our money. And again, it's just because when you start messing with people's money, you get their attention. So you have our attention, but again, we thank you for all that you do, for all of the time that you give to the association, and all the emails and the answers that you provide to us. And again, the outstanding service that you provide. So thank you. And thank you for allowing me to make my comments today. That was it.
Before we run out of time, I'd like to say one thing before we take anybody else. For our first Zoom town hall. Wow, guys, really great job. Josh, thank you for putting it all together. It's just, I think we've had a really great response from all of the members, whether they chatted their questions or whether they came on by video. It's like, wow, I think it's really been successful.
And thank you, Linda, for stealing my thunder and my ending comment. I appreciate that. No, so I don't know if you guys want to answer this right now. It's not necessarily a budget question, but it is been a topic, hot topic from Morgan. It says, can you tell me the thinking behind suddenly closing the beach in front of the homes by the marina to swimming? People have been swimming there for many years without a problem. Then without community input, a no swimming sign was placed banning swimming. Seems sudden and frankly unnecessary to deprive us of a swimming area, especially when the burden on the AMPM beach has grown so greatly.
I can take that one. It's pretty simple. It came from Governor Inslee's office that swim beaches were lumped in with pools under phase 2 closures. So that's why the decision was made to put the signage out in that area, because it came down from the state of Washington.
Well, we also did have a lot of people swimming in the active marina boating area, which is a safety issue. So that's what those signs are referring to. There were actually folks getting on the boats and on the docks and swimming in that active boating area. So that had to be stopped, as that's a safety issue.
So is that, does that answer the question? As far as what we're doing as we're required to do for under phase 2 with the governor?
Is the AMPM beach closed also, guys?
No.
Now, the thing about it, Linda, is we are not promoting any type of use of the beaches for a swimming gathering aspect. None of the county parks are doing that. However, we are pretty much powerless to stop it. So they're being used all day, every day.
We do have the swimming buoys put up at the marina. There's just certain areas in the marina you can swim. You just can't swim in the active boating area. And
Gotcha.
That's the issue we were having. So I hope that clarifies that.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yep.
And
All
I
right.
can tell you today, anything with water access is going to have bathers in it without a doubt. So the public health is cautioned against gathering and the virus spread and due to that, but it's not something that's being enforced or is easily solved by municipalities with real police departments, for example. They're not even responding to it. So there you have it.
Follow up real quick. It says, why is only one section closed if it's the governor's directive?
You'd have to write the governor's office.
Okay. Well, we're at our time. As Linda said, you guys are all awesome for taking time out of your Saturday to join us. Thank you, Karen, for helping with organizing this, and admin for doing the infographics, and ultimately thanks to the community for participating. Everyone's been great, and we still have some unanswered questions. We're not going to let that slip away. So I'll get those in front of who they need to go in front of, so we can get those answered. And again, if you, as John mentioned, if you have further questions, please email communications@suddenvalley.com, and we'll try to get those answered. Or if you have comments, you know, that too, that would be awesome. And what else? I think that's it. Thank you guys.
Yes, Josh, Karen, and everyone. As Linda said, it's it came out pretty good for our first Zoom town hall. So again, thank you for everything that you guys have done, and you know, my team, everything that they've put into this. So, and again, if there's any questions, please reach out to us and we'll get them answered for you.
Thank you, Joe. I hope everyone stays cool. It's going to be hot.
It's going to be a hot one. Hey, John, can you stay on real quick?
Thank you guys so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank
you. Have a
Bye,
wonderful
everybody.
weekend.